Want to know a way to design your next campaign's history with very little effort? Well, in this video, we're going to flesh out your world's history by answering a few core questions. Also, if you like this video, please let us know by hitting the like button and subscribe to catch all our latest videos.
We're going to delve a little deeper and peer at the vital elements for a beginner dungeon master, using questions to flesh out your world history and provide you with some basic information about your world that you can add on when and if the time arises. The Dungeon Master Guides provides several questions that will aid in the development of your setting's core assumptions, such as, how do the gods influence your world, or how abundant is magic?
Many beginner dungeon masters struggle with trying to come up with a rich history from their settings, but ultimately give up from feeling lost on where to begin. I'm here to inform you, you do not need a detailed backstory to get started as a dungeon master.
You may decide that you want to create an entire world, or perhaps start small and just create a town. Either way you go, the principles of both remain the same. If you're using a set campaign world, like the Forgotten Realms setting or Greyhawk, many of the core questions may already be answered on a larger scale. However, asking these questions on a large scope or narrow can provide much required detail to run your game. Ask yourself if you can create a great backstory without knowing your world.
Can you spin a lively tale out of thin air when the player asks an NPC about an old abandoned windmill near Potter's Field? Establishing some key questions will give you, the Dungeon Master, a core understanding of how the area or world functions. Additionally, it will provide your world with the foundation necessary to answer major questions that give life to your world.
We are going to walk through some core assumption questions and give examples on how to implement these elements into your campaign. Answering these few questions provides enough detail that will aid in expanding on your ever-growing story.
We will approach each question and will slowly create a world throughout this video. Through providing answers to these vital questions, it will aid the beginning Dungeon Master to establish a generalized background for their setting. Therefore, we'll start with the outer planes and the gods. How do the gods influence your setting?
Examine how you want the gods in your setting to react to the activities within the world. Do the gods of your world interfere with the affairs of mortals? Are they like the Greek mythology, or are they reclusive and only provide the most dedicated to their name divine powers?
Additionally, think spiritually and how each church reacts to the other. Are there religious wars or cults in the area? Ask yourself questions relating to the gods and religion and begin to develop a spiritual sense of the world. At this point, you do not need to get into the details of the gods. Answering those questions will happen later. Now we're just focusing on the generalities. Are the gods active, or are there major religious wars?
So here's an example. We're going to assume that the gods are in constant struggle, vying for the power in the outer planes. However, in extremely rare circumstances, they may show themselves to mortals. Although, they use divine agents on the prime material plane to expand their dominion of mortals. These divine agents are not the same as the leaders of the church. Religious leaders may have their own agendas to further the power of the church in their God's name. Therefore, the gods play an important role within the world, and the church of each deity has an important role within the sphere of influence. Moreover, celestial or demonic influence is common, and the people of the land are very superstitious and religious.
Now that we have established a general foundation of how the gods influence mortals, additionally, we know that mortals fear and respect the gods. At this point, we can continue and develop the hierarchy and start establishing which gods have the most impact and which in the setting. However, we're going to move on to the next question and continue to build our world's key features on how abundant is magic.
In our example, we've established that divine magic does flourish throughout the world. Now we decide if arcane magic is just as abundant. Restricting magic in a game setting can create awesome game worlds. The same is said for high-powered magic worlds. However, examine questions related to magic and see how it fits in your world.
For instance, is there a hierarchy for schools of magic? Is there a master wizard that rules over a school that all potential wizards must pass in order to use magic freely? This could be on a world scale or localized area. Are magic items common? Can you find a merchant selling magic wands? Or are magic items protected by the wizards and actively sought after to keep them in control?
In answering these questions, you will gain insight on how active magic is in your campaign, and in such, you will be able to develop plots and powerful magic-wielding NPCs to provide you a good backdrop for adventure. Moreover, if a player is playing a wizard or sorcerer within a setting that has low magic or restrictions, you need to inform that player that they may be feared or hunted. Although, gain a basic understanding on the impact the arcane magic has within your setting, but as stated before with the gods, keep it generalized.
Continuing with our example, we'll state that magic is abundant and that there is a centralized control over magic. The last time the schools of wizardry had multiple leaders, and they fought to gain control over each other, which involved into the destruction of nations as these powerful wizards and sorcerers led armies against each other for domination. Moreover, these wizards believed themselves rivals to the gods and demanded to be welcomed to the outer planes as equals.
Establishing that magic in this setting is abundant and wizards have academies or centralized control. However, we didn't answer who is the leader of the Wizards Academy, nor did we answer how were they appointed. Those specific questions will be answered, but not in the process of creation. Keep this process minimal. Answer vital questions and then move on to the next point, which for us is, when was the last major world-changing event?
Though your question does state it's like world-changing event, however, it doesn't need to be affect only the world. It can be a localized event, a great flood that forever changed the landscape of a nearby kingdom, or an orcish invasion that lasted hundreds of years. Both are examples that used to determine a region's history. The Forgotten Realms had the Spell Plague that changed the fabric of how magic functioned within the entire Forgotten Realms setting.
And knowing how long ago the event was provides a backdrop into the possibilities of adventure. Building on these events will create some in-depth concepts that do not have specific answers to specific questions. However, it will provide enough information for you to expand upon.
We do want to examine what was the major event. As a beginning Dungeon Master, you may find yourself trying to find inspiration for events. It is not difficult as you may think. It is normal to gain ideas from others and spin it into your story. Imagine, what if Alexander the Great was an orc warlord? This orc warlord, with a significant sense of battle strategy and very charismatic, unifies armies as his empire grows.
Determine what kind of event impacted the lives of the people within your world. This event causes a change in the livelihoods of those affected. Not all events are negative. The world may have been in an era of peace, and the next world-changing event is about to occur at the start of the campaign. Use inspiration from wherever it may come. Then make changes in names and creature types to create a backstory for your major event.
Continue on with our building a world example. The orcish invasion was finally defeated 10 years ago, scattered into the wilderness. The warlord dead. Now the orcish chieftains fight amongst themselves and have begun to carve out small encampments, pillaging trade routes and outlying villages. Meanwhile, within civilized land, an influx of half-orc population is on the rise. These half-breeds are viewed as potential threats, and some cities have even turned to slavery of any with orcish blood. Furthermore, it has been 500 years since the powerful archmages considered themselves equal to the gods. The arrogance of man to challenge the gods caused the many gods to turn against the humans. The gods cause catastrophe upon human lands from earthquakes, volcanic activity, and even plagues. The elves, dwarves, and other good races feel retribution from the heavens, also become reclusive, alienating themselves from direct interaction with humans. Since those troubled times and the death or disappearance of the archmages, humans have decided to have tighter restrictions on the magic. Those practicing wizardry must register to an academy, and those born of magic are feared by many. Many humans hold grudges against the gods for causing large-scale chaos upon them for the actions of a few. These humans openly fight against religion or turn to more sinister ways to exact revenge by making deals with devils.
It's not easy as a beginner Dungeon Master to write an entire plot for your world. However, with patience and practice, and following these few vital questions, you will create a world rich in lore. As we've been answering the first few basic questions, the last few questions begin to have the answers developed for them.
At this stage in the creation process, we really want to start to get into the whys. Why did the event occur? Why is magic the way it is? Why are the gods acting a certain way? Specifically, we begin to develop a greater detail to the previous questions. Not so much that we provide names, still being very general in the grand scope of the setting.
However, it builds the cornerstone of your setting. Either you are developing a world or just a region, this method works every time. As previously stated, the last couple of questions should be easier to answer. Let us examine why these events occurred in our example. Magic is the way it is because of the arrogance of the previous archmages. 500 years ago fought amongst themselves, causing wars to break out all across the world in their fight for dominance. Moreover, the archmages demanded that the gods treat them as equals. Several of the deities, angered by the humans' hubris, began to punish humans by creating catastrophic events across the world. This in turn created strife between the gods, and the heavenly battles started. Religion within the world became both severely revered and hated. Religious wars broke out within the mortal realms. Many of the good races became reclusive, withdrawing away from human lands, staying out of the religious conflicts, fearing the wrath from their gods. Several factions of humans began to develop, turning to demons and devils for support in the fight against the churches. Weakened from years of conflict, the human lands became an easy target for an up-and-coming orc warlord, who unified the orcs under a single banner and went on to conquer much of the human civilized lands.
As you answer your vital questions, you'll begin to gain a sense of your world. The setting starts to have purpose. It is not perfectly polished, however, you will know how you will want to implement something into your setting. Something that is vital to all settings, major protagonists, antagonists, to help provide direction for the people of the setting. Who are the major influencers of your world? These are powerful monsters or NPCs, both villains and heroes. The action of each can influence the entire campaign setting. A heroic druid within the region or a powerful lich both influence the setting, and their impact on the world may be within the region or the entire world.
The specifics of these powerful NPCs are not quite needed, but you will need to have a general idea on how they're going to affect the setting. Looking at what we've covered so far in our example, we can use some of our history to establish a couple of NPCs that will influence the setting.
The heroic druid within the region blesses nearby farms and protects the area from threats. It was with her help that the human armies was able to finally kill the orc warlord. Now, the druid has been missing for several months. The crops are not as abundant as they once were with the druid's blessings. Without the druid to protect the region, now the emboldened orcs, hearing of the druid's disappearance, have moved into the forest and began extracting resources at exorbitant rates. The orcs have begun raiding the settlements in the area. The druid is a small-scale influencer, but the impact that she had on the region is considerable.
On a world scale, stories have been circling that a lich has taken residence within an ancient keep in the mountains. Even more startling is this lich has been identified as one of the archmages, who has not been heard from in nearly 500 years. Rumors of dire tidings begin to circulate through the cities, as those dedicated to the goddess of death started an unholy pilgrimage towards the ancient keep. The last time the archmage was alive, he challenged the gods. Now an undead, with apparent support from a goddess, his objectives unclear, but when he was last alive, the world was in a perpetual war.
As we demonstrated, following these basic questions, we was able to create enough of a base history within this world. You do not need to think on a grand scale. We did not come up with the names or precise locations. Those are not needed at this point of the creation process. While there is a great amount of detail that is missing for a complete setting, you can take the information provided and develop an ongoing story. At this point, you may want to start examining the creation of your credible threat and how you'll fit them into your setting.
One of the best DM tips I can provide a beginner dungeon master is to take a deep breath and return to basics. During your creation of your adventure, answer these few vital questions that builds on your world's core assumptions. In doing so, you will understand how much impact the gods and magic has on your setting, what and when the last major event occurred, and know a general understanding on who has the most influence within the setting.
Then, as your game progresses, continually add detail to these questions. As we continue this series, delving a little deeper into the 5 C's of being a good Dungeon Master, the system is designed to provide an essence into your setting. As we look into the next key element, credible threats, we will start to add life to the core world.
Let us know in the comments below how you established your settings if you're a Dungeon Master. Or ask us anything, and we'll either provide you with a detailed answer or point you in the right direction.
Again, if you did like this video, please let us know by hitting the like button, smash the subscribe, and the notification bell so you'll be alerted when our videos are uploaded. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.